All right, well, here we go again, jumping into section 8.3. Today we're going to talk about factoring polynomials in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. What is the difference really between this section and the last section? Well, in 8.2, what we were looking at was the form where the first piece of our trinomial actually did not have an a term. So there was no coefficient, it was just 1. Or in the cases where there was a coefficient, we would just factor that out and then proceed like normal. So here we're adding a little bit of a twist. Here is an example. First off, I want to point something out. When we say ax squared plus bx plus c, those are the letters here, a, b, and c, are just representing a coefficient. It's just a number that's sitting out in front. So for example, if I look at this guy right here, a is going to be 10, b is going to be 11, positive. These are both positive numbers. And c is going to equal 3. So those are the coefficients, and the process, again, like I said, is similar to what we did in 8.2. Now here, I do need to point something out. I added a little note here. The book shows two different ways to do this. I'm only going to use the grouping method, and the reason why is because the trial method is just kind of randomly guessing. There's really not a whole lot of math to it, and it, frankly, I get more confused by that method than I do by going through the grouping method. The reality is you're not going to ever be asked to do it by trials. You'll always be asked to do it by grouping in future classes. So I'm completely bypassing it, and even on homework questions where it says, "Hey, solve it by trial factors," you can do it by grouping. You're still going to get the same answer, and the grouping method is actually a lot more simple. You will not have to worry too much about the trial factors method. Okay? If you want to look at it, you want to see how they do it, you can look at it in the book. It's all in there. I'm just bypassing it, and I'm just going to show you this one method because it's a lot easier. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at that example that we have. 10x squared plus 11x plus 3. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to write out all the combinations with products. So the first thing that we need to look at when we're multiplying these out is what the first coefficient is times the last coefficient, or in this case, this is a constant. So 10 times 3, or a times c. A is equal to 10, c is equal to 3. So when we multiply those two out, we get 10 times 3, which is 30. Okay? And now, similar to what we did in the last section, we're going to go ahead and find factors of that number. So previously we were finding factors of just the last number, but now we're going to find factors of the first times the last number. So here is how we have it. Don't look down here. That's the answer. We have the answer 30. We have 1 times 30, okay? Minus 1 times minus 30, 2 times 15, minus 2 times minus 15, 3 times 10, minus 3 times 10. So again, I'm just finding all the combinations of multiples and factors. Positive 5, positive 6, negative 5, negative 6. So when we add all of these up, this is what we get. Now check this out. When you add everything, you're still going to look for where it matches the center. So here we've got an 11x, and that coefficient matches this guy right here. So our factors are going to be 5 and 6. Now here is where things get a little bit different. What we're going to do now is we are going to rewrite the original equation by grouping. I don't know if you remember this a couple sections ago, but when we were writing out and factoring, we were grouping things a certain way. So check this out. When we see the middle term is 11, we'll use the factors 5 and 6. And then rather than throwing them into factors like we did the last section, like, you know, x plus 5, x plus 6, what we're going to do is group them together like this. So when we go through some examples, I'll explain how this works. It's pretty cool, actually. What you're going to do is you're going to combine them in a pattern or an order in the middle. So this section right here, this is where those factors are going to go. You're going to add them. Plus 5x plus 6x. Now, there are situations where you're going to have to reverse it. You're going to have to do plus 6x plus 5x, but it's not in this case. And the reason why is that when you group them, you want these numbers right here, the 10 and the 5, to have their own factors. Just like right here, the 6 and the 3 also have shared or common factors. Okay? So 10 and 5 have a common factor of 2. 6 and 3 also have a common factor of 2, and that's kind of what we're looking for. So why is that important? Because when we go down to the next step, you're going to factor out each of these individual pieces. So here there's a 5x inside of here. There's a 5x right here. So we're going to pull that 5x out. And the remaining pieces, if you want to go through and do the long method of writing out all the factors, the 5 times the 2 times the x squared, the 5 times the 1 times the x, and then use those common pieces to figure out what's going to get factored out, you can do that. That's completely fine. The 5x is going to be pulled out, and then we're left with a 2x plus 1 in the middle. Or I should say on the right-hand side. Now, the same thing happens over on the other side. We can pull a 3 out, and then a 2x plus 1 is going to be remaining. Now, check this out. Now that I've got a 2x plus 1 here and a 2x plus 1 here, since each of these pieces are being multiplied by these guys in front, I can combine the pieces in front into their own factor, and then the remaining piece, the 2 pieces, turn into 1 right there. So this is ultimately what our final answer turns into. I know that's a lot. Let's go ahead and go through some examples, so hopefully you can see what it is that how this works in a few other cases. Okay, so let me go ahead and pull my notes out here. Again, I'm only going to do this by grouping. The trial method is much more complicated than this. So let's go ahead and take a look at question 6. Okay, this question says to factor 2x squared minus 5x plus 2 by grouping. Find 2 numbers whose product is blank and whose sum is blank. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the A term here times the C term. So the product is going to be A times C, which is equal to 2 times 2. So that equals 4. And the sum, what we want the sum to ultimately work out to be is going to be that guy, the minus 5. So the sum that we're looking for, so this is the product. The sum is going to be minus 5. So those are our answers. This is going to be 2 times 2, which equals 4. You can just put 4 if you want. That's fine. But that's the answer to question number 6. Now let's go ahead and keep moving on. We'll go through a few examples. Now listen, and I want to make this clear too. I don't expect everybody to get this on the first try. This is some pretty complicated stuff for elementary algebra. So just keep working at it. There's a number of YouTube videos out there that'll help maybe explain it in a different way than the way that I'm explaining it. So I really encourage you to go and do some of your own research to find methods or questions or YouTube videos that maybe will help you with this. Okay, so we're going to factor this. We're going to do it by grouping again. We're not going to do the trial factors method. So the first thing we need to do is we need to do a times c. This is equal to 5 times 1, which is equal to 5. And so now we need to find the factors of 5. So the product, just like last time, this is going to be 1 times 5 and 5 times 1. That's pretty straightforward. Negative 5 times negative 1, I should say. Negative 1 times negative 5. Let's do it in the same order so we're consistent. This is going to be negative 1 times negative 5. Okay, there we go. So, all right, so now we do the sum. And I'm going to add these up. So 5 plus 1 is going to be 6. This is going to be a minus 6. So now what we're doing is we're looking for the middle term here, and which of these is going to match that? Well, that's going to be this first part right here. So the 1 times the 5, the positive numbers right there are going to be our factors. Now here's the thing. I mentioned earlier how you have to put it in the correct order when you go through the grouping. You could do it like this. 5x squared plus x plus 6x. Well, sorry, plus 5x. That's my fault. We're pulling that factor right there, so that should be a 5x plus 1. Actually, I think in this case it's going to work out nicely. Either way, maybe it won't make a difference. So look at this. Between these two, there's an x inside, so we can do the x multiplied by what's remaining. A 5x right here and a positive 1 right there. Okay. If you want to double check, you can multiply this out, and you should get that answer. And then what we're going to do is just a 1, really. That's the only thing, that's going to be the thing sitting right out in front of this. And look, we have the same thing in the brackets. That's exactly what we wanted, which is great. That actually works out really nicely. So now, look what we have. We have 5x plus 1 times x and a 5x plus 1 times 1. So now we can combine them like we did a few sections ago. We've got x plus 1 times 5x plus 1. Okay, and that's our solution. So how cool is that? Now, actually, check this out. Now, I'm kind of curious if this is going to work, because I did it that way, but if you flip the numbers around, so if you do, say, 5x squared plus 5x plus 1x plus 1, it's a little different. Here you can factor a 5x out, and you're going to be left with an x plus 1. And then here you have you'll factor a 1 out, and you're also going to be left with an x plus 1. So take a look. Check this out. It's the same thing. Wow, that's awesome. X plus 1. That's really cool. Same answer we got the last time. So maybe it doesn't matter what order you put it in. I guess let's just try it on future questions. You see, I learn something new every day too. That actually makes it even easier. Okay, let's do question 16. 3a squared minus 4a plus 1. Okay, so we're going to do the a times the c. A times c is equal to 3 times 1, which is equal to 3. So we have 3 equal to 1 times 3. So this is our product. And this is also equal to a negative 1 times negative 3. Okay? All right, so now what's the sum of these things? This is going to equal positive 4, and a negative 4. Okay? These factors are pretty easy to find the products in sum for, so when we start to get things a little bit bigger, it's going to be there's going to be lots of factors. Okay, so the sum, we're looking at minus 4, so that's going to be this guy, so we're going to use these as our factors. And then, so let's just go ahead and try it in the order that they give it to us in. It worked last time, maybe it'll work this time. 3a squared minus 1a minus 3a plus 1. I think it's going to work. That's cool. All right, so what can we factor out in this case? It looks like it can just be an a. And then we're going to be left with an a minus 1. So how about over here? Looks like a minus 1. Now here, this is where things get a little bit interesting, okay? Check this out, a minus 1. This is going to be an a minus 1 here, because if I take minus 1 times a minus 1, that's going to equal a positive 1 right there. So bear in mind, I need to make sure that this right here is the same as that right there. They need to be exactly the same. I cannot have them different, okay? Do you remember that one time where I mentioned if you have, they look the same, but they're off by maybe a negative number, just pull a negative out in front and then change the sign on the stuff on the inside. You can do that. And that might have been a situation where you'd have to do that right there. Oh, this is a 3. Wow, sorry about that. You're probably looking at me like, what are you doing, dude? And then, yeah, this is a 3 here too. Sheesh. What am I doing? All right, so I've got 3a minus 1 and 3a minus 1 right there. So these match up perfectly. And now my factors are going to be a minus 1, so it's the pieces that are sitting out in front, times the 3a minus 1. There it is. Now, if I did it the other way, this is going to be actually pretty cool. Minus 3a minus 1, 1a plus 1. So I'll factor a 3a out in front. A minus 1 is going to be left. Minus 1 times a minus 1. So I get 3a minus 1. A minus 1. Check that out. These are exactly the same. That's awesome. Well, cool. There you go. So forget what I said about the order of mattering. All right, let's do this. Let's do another one. When you have that like aha moment in math, it's like, oh man, I totally get it. It's one of the most incredible feelings you can ever have. Something just works out perfectly. I'm hoping many of you feel that same way when you work through these problems. This one is going to be a little bit more challenging, okay? So let's start. 15x squared minus 19x plus 6. A times c is going to equal 15 times 6, which is equal to 90. Wow, that's going to have a lot of factors. Okay, so let's go ahead and start listing them all. So we got factors or product here. And so 90, so we'll start with 1. 1 times 90 and negative 1 times negative 90. 2 times 45. Negative 2 times 45. I'm going to have to write small because I have a lot of these to do. 3 times 30. Negative 3 times negative 30. 5 times 18. Negative 5 times negative 18. It's crazy, right? There's a lot of these. This is equal to 6 times 15. Negative 6 times negative 15. 9 times 10. And negative 9 times negative 10. Whew, just enough space. Oh no. You can't see the bottom. There you go. All right, so let's add all of these up. Whew, this is a lot of work. Okay, 91, negative 91. This is going to be 47. And this will be negative 47, positive 33, negative 33. 5 and 18 is going to be 23, positive 23. This will be negative 23. 6 and 15 is going to be positive 21, negative 21. It's a lot here. This will be positive 19, and this will be negative 19. And sure enough, it's the very bottom one that we had. Glad thing I put that on there. Negative 9, negative 10. All right, so those are our numbers. So let's go ahead and factor these out. So we'll toss it in like we did. 15x squared minus 9x. So again, we're splitting this middle factor into its components. Minus 10x, using the numbers below, plus 6. Okay. So can we factor anything out of a 15 and a 9? Well, they do share 3. So, okay, a 3, I'm going to say a 3x comes out of both of these. It's important really just to try to go through the mental math of it a little bit. So there's a 3 that goes into 15, and a 3 also goes into a negative 9. So how many times does 3 go into 15? Well, it's 5 times. So there's also an x. So we'll pull a 3x out in front, and what's remaining is a 5x. 3x times what equals a minus 9x? That'll be a minus 3. Okay? And then minus. So again, we're grouping these like this. Minus 2 comes out of both of these. So let's do, I think it's just a 2. And then we're going to be left with a 5x. Minus 3. Look, it should match up perfect, and it does. So minus 2 times the 5x is a negative 10x. Negative 2 times the negative 3 is a positive 6. How about that? These guys are matching, so we're in good shape. And now I can combine them. 3x minus 2, excuse me. (5x minus 3). That's our answer. Whew. Finding the factors was the hard part here. But glad we did that. All right, next question. We'll do one more. Question 94. This one's going to be a little different because you'll see something in front. And actually, we can make it a lot easier to begin with right off the bat. Okay? When you see a question, one of the things that you can do is check to see right off the bat if there's any number that can be pulled out or factored out. Now check this out. 10 can come out of all of these things. There's 10 goes into 33 times, 10 goes into 10 one time, and 10 goes into a negative 20 negative 2 times. So right off the bat, what you can do is change it to be like this. Okay? You can pull the 10 right out in front, and then you don't even have to deal with it anymore. Now you can do your A times your C of this piece right here. It makes it a lot easier. I would rather find that, the factors of 3 times a minus 2, than the factors of 30 times a minus 20, because let me tell you, that is a lot of factors. All right, so 3 times a minus 2. A times C is equal to 3 times minus 2, which is equal to a negative 6. All right, so now we take negative 6, and we find all of the factors of negative 6. So this is going to be negative 1 times 6, a positive 1 times negative 6, a negative 2 times 3, and a positive 2 times negative 3. Okay. And now we're going to go ahead and add every single one of these pieces up. This is going to be, so here's our product. Here's our sum. 6 minus 1 is a positive 5. Negative 6, positive 1 is a negative 5. 3 plus negative 2, I should say, is going to be a positive 1, and this is going to be a negative 1. So it looks like we got a positive 1 we're looking for. So we're going to be working with this guy. So now let's go ahead and toss it into our equation. Don't forget the 10 in front. That still has to follow along with us. And so we're going to group this a little bit differently here. So we've got the 3y squared. Can I do it? Yeah, let's just try this. Minus 2y plus 3y minus 2. Okay. And now, when we group them, we're going to do these first two pieces and these last two pieces. So we've got 10 times, what comes out of both of these? Well, it looks like the only thing in common is going to be a y. And then we're going to have a 3y minus 2 left over. And then over here, it looks like it's just going to be a 1. And the 1 is because, remember, we want these things to equal each other. So that's what we get right there. So now, when we look at this in terms of its factors, we're going to have the y and the 1, y plus 1, times the 3y minus the 2. Here, let me move my board up a little bit so you can see. So there it is. So that's our final answer. Pretty cool stuff. All right. Feel free to shoot me an email if you have any questions. Other than that, I hope you have a great evening.